AI minds, quantum leaps. Cut the noise, dive deep. Truth unlocked, Dr. Mike on the mic. Tech Unfiltered is on the clock. Now it's time for the show.
There is a new number that helps explain why the internet can feel different lately. Pew Research Center examined a large sample of public web pages and found meaningful signs of artificial intelligence writing or editing in 10% of a random July 2026 snapshot. When the researchers looked only at dated pages published after ChatGPT arrived, the share was 35%. Those are two different findings, and keeping them separate is the key to understanding the story. The first number, 10%, comes from a random sample of 10,000 English language web pages collected in July. That sample includes old pages created long before modern writing tools existed. The second number, 35%, applies only to pages that displayed a usable publication date after November 30th, 2022. It does not mean that 1/3 of the entire internet was proven to be written by machines. It means that 35% of that smaller dated group crossed the study's threshold for meaningful signs of machine writing or substantial machine editing. That distinction matters because only about 10 to 15% of pages in a typical sample had a usable date in their underlying code. Dated pages are not a random slice of everything online. They are a specific part of the public English language web. Here's how Pew conducted the analysis. The researchers used Common Crawl, a nonprofit archive that takes regular snapshots of publicly accessible web pages. They selected 10,000 English language pages from each of 49 snapshots between January 2021 and July 2026. Altogether, they studied 490,000 pages. The archive does not represent every corner of online life. Paywalled publications, private messages, closed social networks, login-only services, and much of the content inside apps are likely underrepresented. The study tells us about the public web that a crawler could reach, not everything people see on a screen. Pew then used an open research detector built by Pangram. The detector assigns a score based on language patterns that appear more often in machine-generated or machine-edited text. Pew treated a score of 0.2 or higher as meaningful evidence of artificial intelligence involvement. The researchers also checked more than 62,000 pages with Pangram's commercial detector. The two systems agreed in 96% of those cases. That is useful evidence that the overall trend is real. It is not proof that every page was classified correctly. Pew says this directly. Detectors can mistake human writing for machine writing, and they can miss machine writing that looks human. The open detector even marked roughly 1% of some pages from 2021 and early 2022 as machine-assisted. Pew says those readings likely include false positives because the modern tools were not yet widely available. That is why a detector can help researchers measure a large collection, but it should not act as an automatic lie detector for one student, employee, or author. A score is a clue. It is not a conviction. The pattern also differs across the web. In Pew's 2026 samples, around 1 in 10 .com pages showed signs of artificial intelligence authorship. The rate was 4.6% for .org pages and about 1% for both .education and .government pages. Pew measured the difference. It did not prove the cause. It is reasonable to suspect that commercial publishers have stronger incentives to produce product descriptions, marketing pages, and search-focused articles quickly. But the study cannot tell us whether any particular page came from careful human collaboration, translation help, routine editing, or fully automated production. The researchers also tracked writing habits that became more common after chatbots arrived. Compared with a 2023 snapshot, long dashes appeared about twice as often. Oxford commas increased by 63%, a group of words that language models favor more than people do more than doubled. The pattern that says, it is not just one thing, it is another, nearly tripled, although it remained uncommon overall. These are trends across hundreds of thousands of pages. They are not a reason to accuse someone because of punctuation. Human writers use long dashes, Oxford commas, lists of three, and polished transitions. A single word or sentence cannot establish who wrote a document. The result also has independent support. A separate research team from Stanford University, the Internet Archive, and Imperial College London used different samples and several detectors. That team estimated that about 35% of newly published websites contained artificial intelligence generated or assisted text by the middle of 2025. That separate study looked for several possible effects. It found evidence that the range of ideas was becoming more similar and that online writing was becoming more positive in tone. It did not find statistically significant evidence for a broad decline in factual accuracy, the disappearance of source links, lower information density, or the loss of individual writing styles. There is another reason to resist a simple good or bad label. A small business owner can use artificial intelligence to turn accurate product notes into clear language. A researcher can use it to edit a translation. A spam publisher can use the same technology to create hundreds of empty pages. The text may carry similar machine patterns, while the value to a reader is completely different. Authorship tells us something about production. It does not settle whether the finished work is responsible. That also means disclosure should focus on accountability. Readers do not need a warning every time software fixes a comma. They do deserve to know when machine-generated analysis, reporting, or evidence materially shapes a claim and no named person has checked it. That is an important break on the most dramatic interpretation. More machine-assisted writing does not prove that the web has become uniformly false or useless. Artificial intelligence can help a person translate, organize, summarize, or polish valuable work. It can also make repetitive, low-effort material cheaper to publish. The detector sees traces in the language. It does not measure honesty, expertise, usefulness, or intent. So what should an ordinary reader do? First, treat polished language as presentation, not proof. Smooth writing once suggested that somebody invested time in the work. Today, it can be produced in seconds. Stronger trust signals are a named author, a current date, a link to the original document, numbers that can be traced, and a visible corrections policy. Second, match verification to the stakes. For a low-stakes question, a clear summary may be enough. Before buying something, compare an independent source with the seller's claims. For health, money, legal questions, or civic information, move closer to the original evidence. Check the government record, the medical guidance, the contract, the court filing, or the manufacturer's documentation, then confirm the date. Third, do not let detector scores become automatic punishments. The same study that shows a large shift also documents false positives and disagreement. Schools and employers need corroborating evidence and a fair review process before accusing a person of misconduct. There is also a reasonable concern about feedback. Future models may train on material written by earlier models, producing something like a copy of a copy. This study does not prove that model quality is collapsing, and it does not prove that factual accuracy across the web is falling. It does strengthen the case for provenance, diverse sources, primary documents, and human review. The honest headline is not that the internet is fake. The honest headline is that machine assistance is now visible at scale in newly published public web content, while the tools used to detect it remain probabilistic. The web still contains people, expertise, original reporting, and careful work. It now also contains a growing layer of machine-assisted writing. Digital literacy, therefore, requires more than noticing a polished voice. Ask who measured the claim, how they measured it, and whether you can inspect the evidence yourself. I'm Dr. Mike, and this is Tech Unfiltered. Questions, comments, concerns, bribes. I will see you in the next one.